So I just got back from the first since the pandemic Albuquerque Artist Summit at the Albuquerque Museum. It's a cute date spot. It's a cute date spot. They have a little cafe, they have a little gift shop, gorgeous jewelry at the gift shop. I got these earrings at the gift shop. They have little faces on them. I got a little head scarf there. It's actually a dishcloth, but it's gorgeous. I got it at a museum. It's beautiful, and everything's made by people here from Albuquerque. So it's really just my heart fills with, it just swells, with love and appreciation and admiration for my community. So I'm so grateful for having the opportunity to attend today, and I wanted to share with you guys because I did actually get some stuff, and I did take notes, barely took notes. One thing I did, it stuck with me, is they were giving us information about, they did a public art census, and they essentially sent canvassers around the entire county, I believe, and it might have been like the entirety of Bernalillo County, I'm not exactly sure, but they were showing all these 8-7 zip codes, right? And they're giving us information on what communities are deprived of public art. And some of the stuff they were saying was gorgeous, and they had said, art is air. It keeps our community healthy, our citizens healthy, and it's as essential to life as air is. So for people of all walks of life to have access to public art, it's essential. It's vital for the community. So this is what the public art census was about. It's about gathering data about who has access to public art, which communities have received, the most and the least funding. They were giving demographics. They had gone and they had photographed and noted every piece of public art, and it had to match certain criteria. So it's very specific. They didn't do freeways, they didn't do highways, because they needed to keep the canvassers safe. There was certain criteria they had to follow when noting these art pieces. So they didn't do highways or freeways. They didn't go on private property. So if you can't see the art piece from like a public road, they weren't gonna, that's not what they were looking at. So that's what they're looking at. Art pieces that you can see from a public road, that the public can appreciate and can enjoy. So we got demographic information about those, which empowers us as artists in the community, as people, citizens of the community, to engage with the community on a level that's a little bit more whimsical, enjoyable, approachable than any other form of government. But this is specifically about taking care of our city. And a wonderful, amazing, incredible woman spoke at the summit. Her name was Denicia Monet Malone, and she's with ROKH, ROKH, and she had given us the data about the public art census, and I believe she came from Indianapolis, and that's what they had been doing there. So we kind of, we're looking across the country, and we're taking good ideas. This is exactly what you're supposed to do. We're taking good ideas and we're implementing them into our community so that we can have the most information possible about the people who need what. What do they need, and how do we get it to the people who need it? And so that's what this research is really about. I loved a point that she had made. Somebody was a little upset about the demographic differences. Like, for instance, white people, they receive they have more access to public art on a day-to-day basis. Um, and I understood because I live in the war zone here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and so I saw this map, I saw these data sets, and I understood that my community, this community that they call the war zone, that I love, the people are gorgeous and kind, and the area is amazing. There's so little reason to invest, and they had said that a lot of public funding it follows like city infrastructure. So where are we investing in infrastructure? That's where we're going to invest in art. And so I think the war zone is not very developed. It's very run down. I would really love to bring attention to this area. Now we call it the International District. And I love my neighborhood, the International District. I live in an area near an area called Ridgecrest, and it is a gorgeous, wonderful neighborhood, food desert. A lot of the people there struggle, and there's no reason to. We support each other deeper than a lot of the communities I grew up in the Northeast Heights, where most of the public art access is coincidentally. So that's kind of some of the data that might have been a bit upsetting. And I know I was like, ugh, figures, right? But Denicia Monet Malone, an incredible woman, so grateful to have had her voice there today, her knowledge there presented to us today, because she had said, this is data, this is research, and we're approaching the research with a positive mindset. I would like to maintain a positive. I didn't take very good notes. I don't write very well, but I remember that she had said, we're looking at this data set with a positive frame of mind. This is good. Any information we get is always good. There's no answers here to those types of questions, but what this is it's actionable information, so that we can now, as community members, make sure that the areas we want to receive A, B, and C receive those things. And that's what the data is for. This data will be released to the public. Obviously, it's not a secret. They're going to have like a map, an interactive map, where you can go and see the photographs, the pictures, the locations of all of the public art in our city. So I really encourage people to look out for that, to look into that, and to start noticing all of the beautiful art around the city and the wonderful condition that it's measurably kept in. They can measure that we as a city care about our city and our art. We care about our art as a city, and we keep it in good condition. There was only one that was on the census that was in poor condition, and most likely because it was very old, but they are having more in-depth and diligent measures to preserve this public art, which would be outdoors. They didn't go indoors to measure public art, even if it was a public building. Performance art is public art, and public art is infrastructure. So I am a performer. I have been for years, and so that really meant something to me, because it means it is worth investing in performance art. So I would love to meet performers that are like-minded, who would be open to just constant, spontaneous and planned public performance art pieces, pop-up pieces, spontaneous art events. And I would do all of that, business type work, just so that we could get more performance art, because measurably we are quite lacking in the performance art zone. And this is they called it a snapshot census, so this is not real time. We don't know what's happening day to day, but while they were on the days that they were in these areas, this is what they measured. And we were very lacking in performance art, whereas you'd go to like New York, for example, and you're gonna see performance art in the public every day, multiple, hundreds probably a day. I don't know, I'm not a genius, but that's kind of the point. So I'd really love to bring attention to that, and kind of, because it creates a more walkable city. So that's kind of where I'm at with the public art census. And we had asked a couple questions after they were done going over the public art census. So essentially that is specific to measuring the public art that people have access to in the city. They're going to send an artist census out as well. So that's going to be more for measuring who in the city does what in regard to the art ecosystem, and how we can collaborate more and get in touch with each other and know more about, as a community, how we can kind of create this community. So when the artist census is available, I definitely think that's important. I know a lot of artists in my life who should definitely get that filled out. Any type of artist, lettering, if you're a musician, graphic artists, animators, if you are an artist, fill out the census. Another thing that they're going to do is an economic survey. So this is for people who are making some type of income from art, from creating art. So that is quite important as well, because that will let them know, how do we get artists as a community access to healthcare, to insurance, to financial aid. So this financial survey, if you're making any money, definitely fill it out, because that's going to give them the data that they need to give them the resources that we need. So let's give them as much data as possible. So that's why I want to keep you guys up to date with these separate things, and we really got to keep them separate, because the more specific the data, the more beneficial the information we gather from it will be. So that's the general basics of the public art census with Denicia Monet Malone from Indianapolis. She was incredible. I really am so grateful that she was there to kind of answer all of our questions and really just provide kind of a very positive mindset and a clear goal, I guess, methodology maybe, because she was bringing over all of the knowledge about how to perform this public art census. They've done it in a couple different places. I think they have an artist census in LA, something like that. Now I wanted to show you guys this here. This is a diagram of the creative sector coined by Wyszomierski in 2008. It essentially outlines the different types of careers and positions you can hold as a part of the creative structure. It would include venues and facilities, funding, public and private funding, education, supplies and equipment, as well as artists and creators like performance art, visual art, writers, publishers, that type of thing. The creative sector is all of us. It's a community, and I think the most important part is getting these bubbles filled for the next summit so that we can have a copacetic ecosystem in the art community. Right now we have a lot of visual artists, we have a lot of creators, and we don't have a lot of every other gap. I'd love to get the theater production managers there, the theater directors there, that's my industry. But in your industry, the types of people that should be part of this ecosystem should be measured as a part of this ecosystem, should be notated as a part of this ecosystem. So that's kind of the goal there. That's what the artist census is, that's what the economic survey is. Let's get as much data as possible so we can create a living, breathing, healthy ecosystem around us. And then this is essentially like information about open calls that they're going to make to fund public art. So if you're a sculptor, they have a sculpture call in spring, summer 2025 this year. So that's the type of thing where this is how we get our artists out there. So, you really want to have this information as an artist so we can get younger, new voices out in the community, people who don't really know the path. This is what we're doing. We're sharing it with each other, and we're having resources passed around. The last thing that we had talked about, after lunch, they did serve us lunch, they did serve us breakfast. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. And the last thing that we had covered was appropriation versus appreciation. Because Albuquerque, New Mexico is a place that was founded on native land. Land that indigenous people lived on. And when Albuquerque was founded, those indigenous people were pushed into what was explained at the summit as prisoners of war camps. The native culture in this location lives longer and will outlive Albuquerque. And our flag has appropriated, we have government sanctioned appropriation of a deeply sacred symbol in the Zia symbol. So they had a wonderful speaker, Noelle Begay, the Associate Public Art Project Coordinator, to guide us through this conversation of appreciation versus appropriation, and how do we create art and give love to these communities appropriately and respectfully. Noelle, JP, an artist, and Mandolin, a government worker, they had done a panel on this subject, appreciation versus appropriation, and they had educated us as artists on the history of and the culture of where we live, which is not necessarily Albuquerque. I grew up, born and raised Albuquerque, but there is a people that has outlived me, will outlive me, has lived longer than my concept of life could even fathom, because the history that I know is not the history of the land. And that's kind of, I'm mixed tribes. I don't have any knowledge of my ancestors and our beliefs and our culture and the art that we make and the symbols we hold sacred. And so to have this whole population of people that gets spoken about like they are non-existent, like they are legend, like they are myth, it's sick, it's fake, and it's imperative that we acknowledge that these people exist today and they're fighting every day for the earth. They're not fighting for their land. They're not fighting to own the land. They're fighting to be back home, to take care of their home, to live symbiotically with their home. It's a culture that a Western mindset could never fathom unless you sit down and deconstruct. And that's what we did today. I was so grateful for the opportunity to hear those people talk, as well as the audience members having an opportunity to go up and share their stories and impart their knowledge as well. And it really opened my eyes to the opportunities around me to appreciate my culture, as well as respect the living, breathing people that operate and that keep the culture alive today. I would not have the opportunity to claim what I can claim without these people fighting every day to be what I wish I could claim. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I have a deep reverence for the people who put the work in to make all of this happen, to get that conversation there. And most importantly, I think a lot of people noticed that it was a lot of lighter skin. And colorism is a deep, rampant problem throughout the world. So to be in a room with so few people of color. And I don't just mean people like me who identify as people of color. I mean people who are darker skinned, who get specifically singled out because they look different. I could never imagine having to look around and come to grips with the fact that yet again, here we are, seeing all that data saying yet again, here we are, white people, white people, white people. That's not even a thing. It's a political terminology that doesn't mean anything to me. But yet again, we can see the gentrification of Albuquerque, the gentrification of art. And this is my opinion. Of course, we received a lot of information, research, and data at the summit, and I've come to my own conclusions, using that data. One thing I want to say before I wrap everything up is when Noelle was speaking, she had educated us about chapter houses and this mission that they had to create relationships with these tribes and these chapter houses, these reservations, all these different reservations across the whole county. She had shown 3 examples of the mythologizing of indigenous peoples. They did the work of highlighting and showing us that it's there in the Declaration of Independence, the word savages in regard to the indigenous people of this land. They called them creatures on the news. They said they're doing a census data for an election, and they say something else. All the other races and something else. These are the things that need attention. These are the things that need to be spoken about. It's disgusting that we tiptoe around these. This is a real, living, breathing culture, society, system that is operating outside of the winning system, outside of colonialization, and that's why we can't acknowledge it. But there is a whole peoples outside of the American peoples here living where I live. And this land is so much more than Albuquerque. Here is where I went off about how we should get the symbol on the flag changed. However, I redact my previous statement. I believe the city should work directly with the people of Zia Pueblo to rectify the appropriation of their symbols and history and even the theft of their artifacts. I'm going to link an article about the plight of our indigenous brothers and sisters here in New Mexico, written by Megan Eaves. Regardless of where you are, I think it's worth the read. It's only 5 minutes. That panel was an incredible gift to my ears today. I'm incredibly grateful to have been a part of this summit and to hear all of these, to be a part of all these things happening around me in my community. I can contribute so little, it feels, in this state that I'm in. And so to find these little ways that I can at least be a part of my living, breathing community, I'm eternally grateful for that. I really wanted to share this with everybody. This whole summit was an amazing experience, and then after I got to do the summit, I got to walk around the Albuquerque Museum for free. So I am extremely grateful. It was kind of a really peaceful experience. I was there alone, and I had my mobility device with me, so I got to be a little bit independent for a second, which was nice because I haven't done that in a while. I also ran into an old friend that I knew a long time ago, and it was nice to see her again. And I got to meet a couple new friends. So we'll see where this takes us, and I will never stop, never stopping. No, I can't end the video on that. Merry Christmas. Fuck. I got a sweater. The best day to wear a striped sweater is all the time. Oh, the best time to wear a striped sweater is all the time.